A very good evening to you and welcome to Power Brief. And tonight we discuss the Building Bridges Initiative report with a bias on the presidential powers. And tonight we are joined by Advocate Philip Mwangale, who is a leadership and governance consultant. He will help us to understand and to look into this part with a legal perspective to understand whether the Building Bridges Initiative report proposals on the presidential powers, whether it is deviating from the 2010 Constitution or there are more improvements that are meant to improve the livelihoods of the people and delivering of services as far as presidential office is concerned. Remember, this conversation is also live on our Facebook page, CAC TV Kenya, and our YouTube channel is CAC TV Kenya. My name is Cornelius Omuse, and I welcome you in this discussion to help you understand what it really means to have a change on the presidential powers, especially on the execution of justice and execution of services to the public. Join us to the end in this discussion. Mr. Mwangale, welcome tonight on Power Brief.
Thank you so much.
I can see you look sharper.
Thank you, you too.
Sharper than the host himself.
No, I'm grateful. Thank you.
Karibu sana on Power Brief.
Asante.
And before maybe we look into tonight's topic, there is something that I rarely ignore when my guests are here on Power Brief. And this is the issue of COVID-19. We are seeing medics losing their lives and prominent people. And as I was passing today on the streets, people are saying, if this is a number of prominent people we are hearing, how about them that are not prominent but are passing on? Yes. So briefly, help us to understand, especially on the policy perspective, where are we? Do we need to change the approach on how this thing is being enforced, or what is it that can be done actually to contain the situation?
First, I must say that it is unfortunate that we are in this position, that we are now losing even medical professionals. And it's not because that they were exposed in different places. They were exposed in their places of work. And the reason for that is that they have not been adequately protected. And that blame lies squarely with the government, because it is the role of the government to ensure that while we are fighting this pandemic, the people that we have tasked and the people that have given themselves, it's a sacrifice, given themselves to protect us are adequately protected. We have not had adequate personal protective equipment. We have not had adequate provision in terms of insurance cover for medical doctors. So that is unfortunate. In terms of policy, the government has employed militancy and combativeness right from the start. And it has always been, if you do not do this, then you'll be arrested. If you do not do this, then this will happen to you. When you are handling issues around public health care, you need to collaborate with the public. And that is an aspect that has been missing. The government should have collaborated with the public in, sensitization, in making sure that protection is at a personal level. And that said, we are not discounting the role of the individual. I think we have also slackened in taking personal protective measures. But I would really fault the government in terms of policy, because what was employed was not adequate. If we would have locked down our borders, if we would, during the lockdown, that was a failure on the part of government, because the lockdown was supposed to be containment areas, and you limit, spread across the counties. But people were moving across. If you had enough money, you'd move across a roadblock. So that is something that should have been addressed then. We are not doing enough testing. There are people who have passed on, and yet, their families do not know that they've passed on from COVID-19. It is very possible that you have those figures. There are people who have been infected, and they do not know that they were infected. Thankfully, most of us are symptomatic. We should thank God for, for those masses. But then, government needs to do more than it is doing.
A way forward
to
must
curb
be
this.
found, Mr. Mwangale.
Yes.
But remember, few days from now, we are told by the academic calendar that pupils and students will be resuming. So what do you think is the way forward? Because everyone feels that life has to continue. We can no longer continue locking down people.
Yeah.
But the best approaches that you think should happen, God for us, everyone for himself, or should there be a proper modality ya kwamba watu waamue ya kwamba if they want to live, then this is what they're supposed to do?
That statement, God for us, everyone for himself, is what the government has employed. That it is up to you. We will give you the statistics, but it is up to you. In terms of schools, yes, life must go on. There are risks of prolonged closure of schools. You close down a school for close to 1 year, and then it has some effects on the student or the child, especially. So those risks must be balanced with the protective measures that we are taking. Yes, we must open schools, we must resume, but under what circumstances? Because we have had systemic issues around our education sector. And one of those issues is the infrastructure. We do not have enough classrooms. As it is, even before COVID, we did not have enough classrooms. There are people who were fast learning under trees, those that had a roof over their head were crammed up. Then you had issues of sanitary facilities. I know of public schools, including my home area where I come from, that a population of about 1,000 primary school children share just two pit latrines, which are not in very good shape. They do not have a source of water, running water, or even water for that matter. There are schools that have their children, boarding schools, that have their children go outside the school to fetch water for, basic use. So if we do not address those systemic issues, we might even, go past COVID, but those issues will remain with us. But for us not to expose our children to risk, because we have already exposed them. One student has already died. That is unfortunate at that level. So if we are going to get back to schools, then we must make sure that the infrastructure in all schools, and it's not just in public schools around towns, there are schools that are in very poor condition. So we must make sure that that infrastructure is taken care of. And of course, that cannot happen in a month. We only have 1 month to January. That cannot happen in a month. We must start putting in place measures and address those deficiencies in a way that will address issues for posterity and not just for COVID. But we cannot then use our children as guinea pigs, just send them to school because we need to adhere to an academic calendar.
So there is hope that
Yes.
the vaccine is almost available. I don't know, it's called Moderna or Moderna.
But I assure you that we will not buy those vaccines. If they'll be bought, it will be for a few individuals. Because you see, a country like the UK, the UK has ordered over 5 million doses from one company. They are planning to order several millions from different companies. Do we have a plan to order these vaccines, or are we
or if we
waiting
have
for...
a plan, do we have the capacity to do so?
Exactly.
Many thanks, Mr. Philip. Now, straight away to our tonight's topic. We watched Raila Odinga when he was at Siala Resort during the weekend.
Yes.
Raila looked so tired, and he was like, someone so tired talking about those people are talking of imperial presidency coming back, I don't know, through the window or through the back door. And I was thinking, and we were looking at it, first of all, we want to get from you as a lawyer and someone who has really looked into these leadership and governance affairs, whether from the 2010 Constitution, when we came out from the Lancaster Constitution to the 2010 Constitution, did we really do away fully with the imperial presidency from 2013 to where we are? In the first place, before we start discussing of we are going back to imperial presidency, did we get out of it?
No, I do not think we made great steps away from that kind of arrangement. What we did was to provide some form of oversight over the executive, and in the sense that now Parliament could independently oversight the executive and there was some independence between these arms of government. And the president would not be calling the shots in the judiciary, he will not be calling the shots in parliament. Though right now what happens is the president calls the shots in parliament. But then we delinked some functions, especially the judiciary, from the powers of the president. That is what really happened. But in terms of concentrating power around the president, I think that has been effectively so. Yes.
Now, thank you. We look into the recommendations, Mr. Philip, that are in the BBI report. And one of it is the Police Council. Remember where we are right now, we have the Inspectorate of the Police led by Mutiambai and the team that is there. Initially, we had the Kimayo was there, and then they left. And looking at the performance of the Inspectorate of the Police, in comparison to the Police Commissioner during the Moi regime and the regimes that passed, even the Kibaki regime, people saw a sigh of relief that actually you can see a police system that is embracing some sort of reforms, some sort of proper or good relationship with the citizens, and some sort of adhering to the rule of the law. Now, according to the Police Council, this suggestion of the proposal that is in the BBI report, where the Cabinet Secretary for Interior will be there, the Principal Secretary will be there, and others will be there concerned with matters to do with the police department. What is your take from a legal perspective and also from a governance perspective? Won't we be deviating more or putting the country into more jeopardy?
We'll be getting effectively into the police arrangement that we had during the Moi regime, where you had the police controlled from State House. What we have in the current constitution is very ideal. And I think what the unfortunate bit that happened after the promulgation of the Constitution was that we took time to have the National Police Service catch up to the law, catch up to the Constitution and to the drastic changes that we had made. Because the arrangement that was there before was that orders were actually coming from State House, from the president. That was a trickle-down order. It was a chain of command from the president, then it goes to the minister in charge of internal security then, and then it goes down up to the police. The arrangement we have is an independent kind, where the IG is under nobody's direction, apart from the DPP. And that is only when the DPP is asking that a certain course of investigation is undertaken to advance a certain case.
On a consultation level.
Exactly. So if we move towards what those proposals are, that you'll have a police council which will be directed by, the executive. That will be effectively controlled by the executive. If that then upends the chain of command that we have right now under the Constitution, then we are getting back to executive control over the police, which is very dangerous, because then but it has, I must also begin by stating that that has been happening in practice, that the president controls, can give an order, to the IG, the PS for Interior can give an order to the IG. It should not be happening in practice, because the IG should be able even to, arrest the Principal Secretary for Interior.
For Interior.
Yes, he should. But if he's receiving orders from him, then nothing can go wrong in the eyes of the IG.
And before such a thing or such a decision or such a proposal to be reached at, it means there is a motive behind it, and the proponents of the BBI are talking of these are views that when we met stakeholders, when we met Kenyans, when we met the church, when we met the Muslims, the Hindus, all people from all walks of life, that is what they brought up. But from these,
yes,
do you think these emanated from the lower level citizens?
No, I do not think so. In fact, this could have been a proposition by just one individual or just a few individuals. I don't think more than 5 people have had that kind of suggestion, that you have a police council that is controlled by the executive. I do not even think that this is a proposal that could have come from the IG himself, because I believe it will be be beneficial for the police if the chain of command ended at the Inspector General. What that proposal is trying to do is to remove the independence of the IG and then dilute the oversight that we have placed upon the National Police Service under the current constitution. So I do not think that this suggestion came from all the 300 and something people that submitted their memorandum and the groups. But what is critical, and I think this is something that the task force should have come out clear on, rather than just blanketing all these proposals as Kenyans' proposals, it will have been important to tell us this proposal came from a certain category of people. This proposal came from the politicians.
So that they're able
yes.
even to trace
exactly
the origin of the person who proposed it, because you're looking all over, you're seeing Ruto throwing tantrums all day long, Raila coming back to counter, and all those politicians, others talking of whatever is there, we were not consulted. Farmers are saying unless the minimum returns are actually met, we are not going to really support this. Which means that maybe at the time that these views were being collected, we could be having other people from other quarters who are adding something. But again, at the same time, my brother, still on the police, because this is where there's a lot of cries that the part or the path to imperial presidency is coming back through this. There is a time we were attending a particular legal conference, and the guest speaker then was this man called Abdikadir Mohammed, actually a constitutional lawyer.
Mind,
and he was talking of the limits of the law. And there's a question that he posed. I think I'm the one who posed, and he posed back. When we talk of independence of arms of government or departments of government, we were looking into the practicality of it, or the practicality part of it. And I want to ask you also, from your experience, from your training, and also from your practice, whether it is possible in a democracy setup to have independence of government.
I think there are two things that need to be handled in unison. You have independence and you have interdependence. So you have arms of government that are independent yet interdependence. And you cannot have that independence if the interdependence bit is missing, because they are not working in isolation. I'll just borrow thoughts from one legal philosopher called John Locke. While writing in his very comprehensive paper called The Treatise of Government, he mentions how the legislature and the judiciary should work together with the executive. And that aspect of the interdependence of arms is what happens in practice. Yes, the judiciary is independent, for example, but it is dependent on the legislature for certain things. The legislature passes laws that will be defined or interpreted by the judiciary. The legislature works in committee with the executive because there has to be a legislative agenda of government. All these arms are in government. They are arms of government. I think that is what is important. If I may borrow from the Bible, and when Paul was addressing disunity and talking about the body of Christ, and he was saying the arm cannot then say, cannot go against the rest of the body or the foot. So I think these arms of government cannot go against each other, and none can claim that we are independent and so we do not listen to anyone. That kind of cooperation is something that misses on some level.
Let's look into this, because what the proponents of this constitution have been talking about these changes through the BBI. They talk of we got a constitution, we have practiced it for the past 7 years, actually it's 8 years, and we have seen where the shoe pinches, where there is obstacles, where we need to improve, where we need to do ABCD. At some point, and I think you are the one who was here, and we were talking about when the president talked about unataka nifanye nini. Because you're saying, I give a command, that so and so to be jailed, but tomorrow activists will be in court.
Yes.
Someone will go to court maybe to seek bail, but because the constitution now provides for independence, then it forces the judge to say, we have released him, even though the intelligence part of the country machinery system talks of this person is a threat to the country's economy and also to the security.
I think
on that part.
Yes. We have been desperate to get back to the old order because we have not made this new order work. It is just that.
Deliberately,
it is,
intentionally?
For some it has been deliberate, for some it has been because they don't know how. And when it comes to those utterances by the president, I think the issue is not really what he says should be done. The issue is whether what he says should be done is actually followed through. And when you talk about corruption cases, we've had a gap in the criminal justice system where prosecution is commenced by the police. In the current order, prosecution can only be commenced by the Directorate of Public Prosecution, by the Director of Public Prosecution. So we have had cases of, the police arresting individuals and then taking them to court and asking the DPP to rubber stamp charges. It should not happen that way. It is the police who should conduct investigations, and then the file is forwarded to the DPP, and the DPP can then determine, because of his legal expertise and knowledge, whether that file has enough or sufficient evidence to warrant prosecution and obtain conviction. That is the gap that has been there. That is the link that has been missing. So you have instances of people arrested, taken to court, and because the investigations have not been done to a level that can obtain conviction or should even commence prosecution, the case has to be thrown out. So you find the executive being frustrated because they were taking things, they were putting the cart before the horse. That has been the challenge. So the challenge we have been facing, aside from policies that are not very sensible, we have been facing a challenge of executing the new constitutional order. And that is why those of us who are not proponents of the new constitutional amendments posit that we should have effectively implemented this constitution. And if we had failed, as we have, then we should have conducted a thorough audit to identify what were the gaps. What roles did we play in making sure that this constitution has not been implemented?
Many thanks, Philip. Now, there are two things here before we come to the end of our discussion tonight. There is this thing, one, the judiciary ombudsman, and I've been taking my time sometimes to understand what is ombudsman. It looks like a Teso name or Luo name. Us from the western part of Kenya, Nyanza, have our name beginning by O. So briefly, what is ombudsman? And Ruto cried wolf about this one, the Bomas of Kenya, talking of having the judiciary ombudsman is one way also of eroding the integrity of the judiciary or the judicial service system. So briefly, what is a judiciary ombudsman, and why do you think, or why are people crying that introduction of this is also going to water down the quality of the judiciary?
An ombudsman or an ombudsperson is a watcher, sort of a watchman that superintends over the aspects that happen within a certain institution. Currently, we have a judiciary ombudsperson. And that person, the person who is operating in that office is the Deputy Chief Justice. So it will not be a new introduction per se. What is being introduced is the route towards getting the judiciary ombudsperson. And the proposal is that that person will be appointed by the president, which effectively means that the control of that office will be by the executive. Now, when you want to oversight an arm of government that is independent as the judiciary is and ought to be, you do not then subject it to control by the executive. What should happen, and it is ideal for us to have a judiciary ombudsperson, what should happen then is to get that person appointed in a process that is devoid of control of these other arms of government. And one of the suggestions that has been thrown around is that that person could be appointed by the Public Service Commission. That would be ideal. The same thing that happens with the National Ombudsperson, who superintends over the Commission on Administrative Justice. If we go that direction, then that would be ideal. But it is not really an introduction of a new office. It is an introduction of controls over the judiciary by the executive. And that is why I agree with Deputy President William Ruto that we need to address that.
So meaning that something has to be done there,
Yes.
in case there is a solution that has to be found, and also for smooth operations of the judiciary.
Yes.
Now, finally, my brother Philip, we are where we are.
Yes.
And you hear what is being said, ya kwamba milango na madirisha na tundu zote zimefungwa.
Yes, yes.
You had that it's alleged you had all the time to present whatever you feel or to be presented.
Yes.
And here we are. What do you think is the solution? Ni kungoja kiumanie mbele vile Rawa alikuwa amesema itakuwa decided?
Yes.
Because it seems the train has kicked off. Na unajua gari moshi likitoka boss unasimama mbele.
Unfortunately, hili gari moshi liko empty. It only has the driver and the conductor. But in as much as that is so, and the politicians have told us that whether we like it or not, this thing is going through, I think then we resort to the people's power. That when this thing gets to the referendum, it is defeated at the referendum. But even before that, there are things that could actually end in parliament. There are some amendments that do not need a referendum. And those are things that we really need to watch out for. So if we continue with this process unamended or no discussion is done around it, then we face the danger of some things ending up in parliament and then injurious to the constitution. And the reason why these things are being pushed, the reason there's this kind of urgency is because the things that have been camouflaged as very radical and very progressive could come out if we had real discussions, including what we discussed earlier, the presidential powers and the powers of the Prime Minister, which is nothing new. If you look at what is being proposed under the Prime Minister's powers, he will just be the lead of government business, look at government legislative agenda, chair cabinet meetings, if assigned by the president, and any other functions assigned by the president. These are things that have been happening all along. So the president will retain the powers that he has had before.
Finally, in 30 seconds,
yes.
Should the train, even if it doesn't have people inside, as you've said, isimame anze kubeba watu afresh, or it continues going up to the destination?
Hii train inafaa kusimama. This train should stop. If it goes up to its destination, we would have wasted fuel. We would have wasted a lot of money. So and because it cannot come back, then it needs to stop where it is, and those that have been left back can walk and board the train.
Many thanks. That is their opinion, the legal perspective and understanding of Advocate Philip Mwangale. He has helped us through tonight's discussion, where we began by looking at our situation in regard to COVID-19. And we've also gone deep to look into the proposals in the BBI report concerning presidential powers in comparison to the 2010 Constitution and also the Lancaster House Constitution. We appreciate your overwhelming responses on our social media platform. We wish time could allow us, because the man is full of content and understanding. And remember always, whatever happens on Power Brief is not the official position of CRAC TV, but the opinions and the understanding of our guests. For me, Cornelius Omuse, till next Thursday, as we continue to be hopeful to usher in the year 2021, I wish you a very good night.